any request from the client, we will try to get the token value from the header authorization. So once we are getting the token from the authorization, if it is not null, then we are getting username from the token. Okay, from the token we are getting the username, and then if that is not null and as well as your security is null, that means for your authentication process, if security is null, yeah, just just a moment, online people. Okay, so we return logic. Once we getting username from the token, we are passing it to the database so that we are verifying that user is already available in the DB or not. Okay, maybe any with respect to the authentication point of view, by the time the user account is deleted or maybe something, finally you are getting all the details simply. That means you are passing username, what you got from the token to the DB, and you are getting all the user details. Now by using those user details, again, you are verifying the respective token is valid token by passing the user ID. So here we can customize the logic, guys. We can customize in any number of ways. Okay, so it's not like permanently or every time we used to write down same thing. We may write down based on our requirement. Sometimes we may skip couple of steps also, or we can customize the things like that. Okay, once we are passing, we are just verifying the token is a valid token with respect to username, what we got from the DB, and we are passing the token, what we received from the request. If everything is good, then we are making a token created, and the token we are passing to the Spring Security context for that user. Yes, this user is good with respect to token. Okay, it's a valid token, something like that. And then we are passing request to the next filter. That is what happened internally. Now, after that, we created one more bean object for the called as security filter chain. So this is most important bean object as part of security implementation. Okay, this is being introduced from Spring 6 and Spring Boot 3. Okay, and before that we used to have web security configure adapter. If it is Spring 5 or less than Spring 5 or Spring Boot 2 or below Spring Boot 2, we used to have a class called as web security configure adapter. So they changed a couple of things as part of the security module in Spring 6. There is a lot of changes. There are a lot of changes happened in Spring 6, but functionality was same. But they introduced a couple of new methods. They deprecated. they deprecated a couple of existing methods and they introduced new methods in place of deprecated methods, and they renamed or they given new class names, and they deprecated the existing classes. They given new functionalities with new class names, something like that. Okay. So please remember these points also. Spring Boot 3 is built on Spring 6. Spring Boot 2 is built on Spring 5, like that. Okay. In interviews, they might have asked you when you are saying like I'm practicing on Spring Boot 3. When you say like what is the knowledge you are having, if you say like Spring Boot, and immediately sometimes they will ask you which version you are working. If you say Spring Boot 3, then they will ask indirectly, okay, then which Spring version it is being used by the Spring Boot 3. At least these things we will expect from the freshers. These kind of things also we will expect from the freshers. Okay, so please be ready for everything. So that's why whenever you are practicing anything, observation is more important, analysis is more important than the solution. Solution should be the last. First thing should be analysis. Design and analysis should be the first thing, and then you have to implement solution based on that. So analysis is more important point. Okay, so after that, we are trying to build security configuration. So here, Spring Security provided a class called as HTTP Security, and as part of this security, we are defining all the security rules. Like what has to be disabled, cross-site request forgery, CORS errors, CORS we are disabling. That means any request coming from the outside of the application, outside of the domain. I can say like simply outside of the host names, other than the current host name. If any request came from the other host names, other sites, that is what the meaning of it is. If you want, you can disable or you can remove these things also, no problem. So authorization request. So here we are making as part of this method, we are defining which API should be protected, which API should not be protected. Like that we are defining here. So request matches, if any request came and it is matching to the customer/care or user/create, user/login, then immediately security module has to be done what? Permitting. So that means the request has to be permitted to execute the actual REST service body, the actual REST service implementation. Okay. Other than these, any other request. Okay. Other than these, any other request has to be authenticated. So like that, you can define here n number of sequence actions. Okay. Sometimes you can write down deny all. You can take one more authorize. So you can build the chain here by following n number of requirements. Okay. When couple of times you have to deny couple of requests by default. When they are sending request for one of the private URLs, probably you have to deny couple of the things. So like that, you can build couple of things here. So if you observe here, I already shown you so many methods will be available. Anonymous, authenticated, deny all. Deny all is all about specify that URLs not allowed by anyone. So assume there are a couple of URLs you implemented and those URLs you are used only as part of internal to your application. Via your calling, maybe some reason you written it. By the time you should not allow anyone to access it. In future, I will allow. You got the point now? For example, I implemented a functionality. Now you can ask one question, sir, when you implemented and we are not allowing anyone, then what is the use? Right? So deny all means, for example, a REST service slash, okay, delete or something is there, slash something, whatever it is, slash create or whatever it is. Now, if I am denying every request, then what is the use of implementing that REST service? Right? So assume this is a scenario. I need to implement a REST service and okay, it has to work. Finally, fine. But I will not enable that REST service right now. In future, I will enable that REST service. But by the time implementation and testing should be completed. So there is a reason. In future, I will enable that REST service. But by the time coding should be completed, implementation should be completed. Okay, so in such case, are you going to allow any request with security or without security for that REST service? We have to allow either with security or with token, without token, whatever it is. No, right? We have to deny it because in future I am going to allow or in future I will make that REST services accessible to the client applications. So in such cases, you will hide those kind of REST services by using deny all and all. So that's why even though you are sending a valid token and you are trying to access that REST service, it will not, security module will not allow you to access this REST service. So those things you have to write down again as a dot request matches and then you have to write down deny all these things. Okay, so you can write down those, but we are writing permit all, any request authenticated. So how it is has to be authenticated means here we are using a concept called as token validation and the token validation is being done by as part of this JWT token filter. So that is what we are making. And at the end, finally, you built all these operations on the reference of security. That means here the method parameter, what we take in security, that the reference of HTTP security is security. So as part of the security, you built all these rules. And finally, you are calling a method called as build method. So that means you are finalizing all this configuration. So it's following which design pattern? Builder design pattern. So realize how much important design patterns in your life now. Okay, so we discussed already. So don't forget the design pattern of builder. It is very, very important. Wherever you go, it is following like that. So the design pattern builder will be there. Most of the scenarios. So that's why in interviews they will ask you, do you know any design pattern, something like that? Because their intention here it is, those design patterns are being used as part of frameworks, as part of real-time applications, like that. So whether you are aware of it or not, like that they're asking. Okay, so this is what we implemented yesterday. And after that, we made one more code change. What it is, password encoder. We created a password encoder and in the service class, so Spring Security, so Spring Security will always encourage us as most of the real-time applications will use predefined or user-defined password encoders. Okay, and we have to encode the passwords. We should not store password values directly into the database, like as a plain text. Directly in the sense, as a plain text, we should not store data into database level. So that's why we used a predefined password encoder and we created a bean object and we are calling predefined method called as encode. And internally, It is encoding the password what received by the time of user registration. When user is creating first entry into the application, the customer point of view. So his password will be stored in the encoding manner. Okay. After that, we have to create one more bean object called as authentication manager. This is being used internally by the security. So that is called as authentication manager. I'll tell you where it will be used also, we will see. Authentication manager reference. So get authentication. So here we have to use one more called as authentication configuration. A class. Return new. Sorry. Get authentication manager. Okay, so why it is showing the things is it is asking us to handle the exception. So compile time exception. So whenever we are getting instance of authentication manager from the authentication configuration. So first of all, see what is the authentication manager, what is the definition they given here. Process an authentication request. So internally, we are passing a username, password or not at the time of login. What is the login process? Login is nothing but authentication or not, right? So that is what the authentication. Authorization is whether you are really capable or not without username. I mean, you are authorized persons to access that service or that resource is all about authorization. Now, for example, /account/addresses in Flipkart, we are seeing everyday same example, right? So now tell me, when you are sending a request to access /account/addresses, in such case, authentication is happening, authorization is happening. Authorization is happening. How it is happening? How authorization is happening? By using internally token. By token, your token is a valid token, then it is allowing to access that REST service. If token is not valid, then it is not allowing. So that comes under the authorization. Authentication means username, password, where it will involve the username and password. Then authentication. So now in this case, this authentication manager object we are going to use in the purpose of authentication time. Authentication is nothing but login time. Okay, so that's why we are creating these objects. So these are also all security module onwards, from the security module only. So it is asking us to handle a compile time exception. Handling a compile time exception, I'm not handling. I'm just throwing with respect to exception. Oh, sorry, I was created in wrong place. It's a service class. See how clearly Spring Framework is designed now. Can we write down bean methods inside the service class? Nothing but component. Bean methods inside the component, where we have to write down the bean method? Always inside the configuration class. So that is what the compile time error I got. I mean, a warning message I got here, like add a @configuration. So we should not add it. I thought it's a configuration class. You can write down one more configuration class. You can add it, or you can utilize existing configuration class also. For example, I'm keeping this logic here. Now it is a configuration class. So this is the reality of writing @bean methods, @component classes, guys. It's not like we are going to write down bean methods for create employee, create user, like what we learned as part of the core module. No, it's not the reality. That at the time we just understood the fundamentals. That's the purpose we created manually bean objects for the user, students, products, orders. But what is the reality here? It is those are all things always comes from the client front end. You will receive always as a request bodies. Okay, as part of this process, when you are using any third-party libraries, when you want to create an object for the third-party classes outside of your project or the jar files, third-party jar files, So then you are going to write down these kind of bean methods, component classes for the predefined classes. This is all. Okay, so now even we got the authentication manager also. Now let's go back to the controller where we are doing the login. So login is very important. At login REST service only, we need a special treatment with respect to authentication integrated with the security. Remaining REST services we don't need to touch. That's the reason I taken this project. We have a lot of REST services in this, but security point of view, do you think every REST service level you are going to write down anything related to security always? No, you will never ever write down single word also related to security as part of business REST services. Only one or two REST services level, the security logic wise, you will add couple of functionalities, but the remaining all, you will directly focus on the business logic implementation, but those will be executed always once your token is valid. But you will, it's not like, okay, so I have a REST service like this, create address. So that here also I have to add some security related logic inside the REST service, inside the controller method or inside the service method. No, you don't need to touch all these things. But when you can access this REST service, when your token is valid, then only you can access it. Okay, so that's why, as I told you, security module is always only one time work. It's only one time work. Once you have done that, you will never ever touch security layer logics. It's like we will configure one or two rules here, and that's all. Security layer will be done. Now the remaining all is about business logic implementation, business requirements. Those are all things we will work. Okay, now let's come back to the REST service of login. What we are not implemented here. Okay. So first of all, I'm taking this one as a post mapping. Okay, so and what is the URI given? /user/login, right? Okay, so public. We can manage it later. First, I'll write down go with this string. So what else you want here? We will always get a request body or not. What is the data we will get as part of the request body? Username and password. Yes, that's all. User credentials. I'm taking a class. We don't have any class with this. We are going to create a Pojo class now. Okay, let me create a Pojo class for this. Create class user credentials. So I'll create. So what is the details we want? Username and password, right? So I can take. So username is nothing but in our case, email ID. Okay, this is having address details also. So is that enough? So email ID, password, right? That is only we will get from the front end as a request body as part of the login REST service. Okay, so Return null. I will replace this null. First, let's avoid the compile time errors, what we written as of now. This laptop is very low for me. Okay, so now, okay, so once a request came from the front end, the data, the content available inside the user credentials. So what you have to do with the user credentials now, let's say here. Yeah, so here you have to get this authentication manager object, what we created here it is. So we have to get via this authentication manager object, we are going to perform so authentication as part of the login. So for that, I need to get that object here also. Auto void. So I'm getting that bean object here as a dependency inside the controller class. And here I need to use this object authentication manager. So before using authentication manager, if you see there is a method available, authentication manager dot authenticate. So we have to pass an object again belongs to the authentication type. Authentication type. So what is the meaning of authentication type? Here it is. Let's see first of all, what is authentication? Okay, so this is what authentication. Spring one. So for that, we have again username, password, authentication token I am taking. I'll bring it to next line. So here, user credentials dot get email dot get password. So I'm just passing username password to this token. And now I'm passing this token to the authentication method. Okay, so here I will pass authenticated method here. So if anything is wrong, generally you will get an exception. In case credentials are wrong, this laptop, I don't know why what's happened. Okay, so I'm writing catch block here. What? Oh, here, right? It's all. Okay, so what I'm writing here it is, I think there is an exception available, bad credentials, exception from the Spring Security. Thrown if an authentication request is rejected because the credentials are invalid. So internally security layer is going to verify your username password where it is. We discussed, I think here. Now here, it will get a user details object into his context memory or not. We discussed, right? That load by user ID. So first, once you are sending the login, yeah, this one. Once you are sending the login, assume like email ID, dilip@gmail.com. So that will be passed to the DB by the security module with the help of that user detail service. Okay, abstract method, what we implemented, right? So with the help of that method, with the help of user details interface reference, so it will get all the information into his private memory. Now what it is doing, authentication manager, the username coming from the DB is matching to this one or not, and password is or not. So if both are matching, then you will not get any exception. In case anything is not matching, user ID and password, then your authentication manager is going to throw an exception called as bad credentials exception. So now you have to handle this exception again. Okay, rejected because of bad credentials are invalid. For this exception to be thrown, it means the account is neither logged or not disabled. So that means, so that is what this exception is going to throw only with respect to credentials are invalid. But in the login point of time, we will verify only credentials are valid or not, right? So that is what. Okay, for example, credentials are valid, then we are going to get the back credentials exception? No, right? So then it will move to the next slide. So as part of this, what I'm doing here, it is string token equal to, so I want to get, now credentials are good. We have to create a token or not? We have to create a token. So where we return that logic? Inside the JWT, what is the class name? JWT token manager, right? So can I get this into controller? So here also auto void, because it's a bin object. We return as a component. So now this, by using this object dot create token or generate token. Yeah, create token we receive passed. Return the method create token. So what we have to pass here? Can you tell me what I have to pass here? User ID code. This is what, right? User credentials dot get email ID. So based on that, a token will be created. Now I have to attach this token to headers. So is this correct? So next, this is imported from wrong place. HTTP headers. We have, please be careful with package names. Sometimes a class available from different packages with same name. See here, HTTP headers available from the java.net.http. One more HTTP headers from the Spring Framework. So we want which from which package? Spring Framework. So that's why please be careful. Sometimes if you are importing this and you are trying to execute your logic, it will not work. So okay, so now what I have to do? Where we have to add this response entity, right? So here, so here you can do one thing. You can pass user details object, what your email ID, gender, whatever you will load, right? So you can write down extra logic also. You can write down one more DB call. So once authentication is good, okay, from the service layer, what you can do is to do get all user details. So how can you get it? Can you write down one-to-many mapping in between user table versus address table? Right? So when you are registering, you defined a user information table where username, passwords, everything available, and you return one more table called as address. One user is maintaining multiple address table. Now you define one-to-many relationship between user versus address table. When you are registering also, a user will enter, customer will enter in the front end, first name, last name is gender, okay, as well as all the addresses information, and you will click on the register button. Then that request will reach to the register REST service. Okay, that means here. Now, for example, if you added here address details object and same thing you are converted to the entity, okay, as part of one-to-many point of view, then entire information will be inserted into DB or not. Now, same reversal operation you are going to do in the login time. Now, what you will do, get all user details. Once authentication is completed, then pass the user ID and write down a method called as find by ID. Then what you will get? All the entity information or not, all the information available from the table or not, your gender, your email ID, your first name, last name, and everything. So attach that object to the response entity. So then define here a class what you take care, user details, request. I mean, I'm not taking everything. So you just write down a D2O class where it contains all the information. Then what you have to do? You have to wrap the object what you got from the service layer or from the repository layer, wrap it inside the response entity and pass it. Then as once your login is validated, your login is good, then what are the information response you will see? All your information, and at header level, a token also. At header level, a token also. So here For example, when your credentials are wrong, you can throw one more exception here. A custom exception you can throw so that this flow should not be executed, right? So when authentication is failed, then if you return, if you are not throwing anything from the catch block, then this will also be executed. But do we need to execute really? When authentication is failed, you will get the bad credentials. At the same time, throw one more exception from here and handle that exception via a concept called as controller advice classes. Controller advice classes, exception handling, exception handlers, exception handler, controller advice. You remember that? How to handle exceptions in the REST services? So then, whatever the exception you are throwing from here, you can define a user-defined exception, throw from here, okay, bad user credentials, something like that. Then you can forward that, or you can handle this exception too, or you can do one thing. Okay, whenever you are not writing this logic, what will happen, guys? When an exception came, automatically it will go to the controller advice or not. But in the controller advice level, which exception you have to handle? Bad credentials exception you have to handle. Then when any exception came, then automatically it will reach to the controller advice, but this logic is going to be executed. No, that is only expected behavior, right? When bad credentials are there, why we have to create the token? We should not create the token, right? There is no use, right? Your credentials are bad, then why I will give you the token? So there is no use, right? So like that is what I'm telling you. If you start thinking with your old concepts, you can do a lot of things in the security module also, but it's not, we don't have time to discuss each and every point days by days. So that's why we will discuss as a straightforward scenarios. Okay, when you are having the knowledge of old skills, try to enhance, try to implement in this kind of areas. At least I'm giving you idea. Just implement those ideas. Once you are going to the home, throwing an exception from here, or write a exception handler method as part of the bad credentials exception and try to handle it. When you are giving wrong username password, what is happening like that? Okay, so in this case, right now, I'm not writing much. I'm writing only string. So you can override that. HTTP headers dot add. So what is the header name we have to send? We can give anything. We are sending from server to client. So what is the header name you can give? Based on your requirement, you can give anything. But when client sending the token, what is the header name we defined in the backend logic? Authorization. We defined as what? Authorization. It should be always authorization. The client has to send always token with the header name called as authorization. Otherwise, it comes under the invalid token. So if you are making token, if the client application is sending the token with a different header name, then we are handling that header names. No, right? So that is what. So you do one thing. You can use same thing here also. So I'm attaching the generated token as part of the at response header level authorization, and what I'm going to do here, it is new response entity. Okay, if you see here, body and HTTP status code, no. Body, no. Multi-value map, headers, nothing but status codes, okay, but I want body also. Body, multi-value map, headers, as well as status code. So this one I can use. So body is all about welcome to home. Please. But in this case, what I'm asking you, you have to make a DTO class, define some user details, one more class here, user profile, something like that. Okay, a DTO class, and get all the details from the database, make a user profile object once you loaded data from the DB, and okay, wrap that user profile object and pass here user profile reference. Then you will see in the response level, your first name, your last name, your gender, your email ID, okay, your date of birth, something like that. Then generally, what front-end people will do, they will take that response, they will display in the tabular format, color format, or based on the layout, they will display that. You're getting the point, what you have to do, but I'm not going to do that. User credentials dot dynamically I'm writing, get email ID, something like that. Okay, here headers we already created, same thing is being passed, and null. What is the third component? Status codes. So what you can write on here, it is 200 okay, you can write down. Okay, so it's all about 200 okay. Now for example, let me give a second. Assume you got a bad credential exception here. If you are handling in the catch, can you return directly from here itself? Return new response entity, invalid credentials. Like that, can you return or not? Invalid credentials and send HTTP status as unauthorized. Where you have to write down this statement then? That's what I'm telling you. It's all about your core Java skills. It's not Spring. So you have to write down this statement inside the catch block. So immediately the execution will return from here. Then this logic will not be executed. So many ideas. It's all 1% to 1% solutions will change. But okay, the way of coding will change. But ultimately the result should be same. But coding style may change. You may have your own idea. I may have my own idea. Because of my experience, I may get better idea. With your experience, you may get a medium level idea. Or maybe sometimes you may get a better idea than me. So like that, things will change. But ultimately the result should be same. Result should not be changed. Whether you will write down one more controller advice class, that is a solution, or you can handle here itself response entity instead of writing controller advice method. Both are same, right? Okay, fine. So this is what we have to do as part of the login method. Now let's try our luck. I don't think we missed anything. If anything missed, we will see exceptions. The problem with the security module is, right, you cannot test immediately whatever the change you made, because it's all about a linking of multiple components, filters and everything. You cannot test, okay, I written 2 lines, let me test it until this it is working or not. So once you make a proper minimum basic security configuration, then only your application will be started and then only you can test it. Before that, you cannot like, okay, I written 1 line, let me test it. It will work. No, it will not. But with experience, we can manage it. So this project I will upload, guys. This is this looks like a 100% real-time coding project. Okay, imagine how we written the codes. Status codes, response status codes, 201 created, 200 okay. We written a lot of other things also, path variables, query parameters, everything, and that too, we written with respect to comments, analysis, and everything. Okay, so okay, let's start our application with this. Login is done and everything is done. Now let's see the flow once. Okay, so just understand this flow diagram. So once request is coming, incoming request, then security configuration, it will reach out. It will be identified as protected or non-protected. If it is non-protected, then controller method will be executed and you will get the response. If it is protected, then it will look for the token validation. Are we written this logic or not? Even identifying the protected, non-protected also we written or not? Yes. So token validation, we written this logic, how to validate the tokens, timestamp and everything. Now once everything is true, then internally security module will make a token, setting the token, and request will be forwarded to the controller method. And finally, you will get the expected response. In case token is false, you will get 401 unauthorized, and as a response, what you will get? Unauthorized request. You will not give any response, and the request will not be forwarded to the controller method execution. Simply you will get unauthorized. So this is all about expected behavior. So let's see the testing point now. I think I will get one exception. Yeah. Super. Okay, thanks. Okay, so this is the problem of, okay, so something like circular dependency exception. So it is internally depends on one bean object on another bean object creation, another bean object is depends on the another bean object. So a circle is formed, a deadlock situation. In threads, you will hear like a deadlock, right? So deadlock means I will dependent on you, you will dependent on me. I will say like you complete, I will take your result. You will say like no, you complete, I will take your result and then I will start. Then what is happening? A deadlock situation, a circle is forming. You are depending on my result, I am depending on your result. So a circle is going to form. So same thing. So circle, okay. What you got here it is circular dependency exception. So like that. To resolve it, we have to do other things, but I will not do everything. Don't worry too much about it. So Spring is saying to resolve this problem, I will do one more thing also here. I am doing create. The reason is I want to drop the table one more time. I want to freshly insert the data because we added password encoder. Earlier we have only plain text, but right now onwards we have to make sure password should be encrypted. And internally security will also takes that encryption object, it will encrypt, and whenever it is reading data from the DB also, it will decrypt by using that decrypt encoder password internally. So for that freshly creating the tables, I taken this. I will modify it as none again. So tomorrow we have a class. Okay, so I'm trying to finish the things as much as possible before May 12th. I don't think it will be completed, I know that, but let's see how it goes. Because May 13th is election. So probably I will also go to the election. I will go to the hometown and I'm planning to stay 1 week there only. So can I take online for, online anyway, online, offline people. So you may probably, we will left with 4 to 5 classes by the time. Sorry, last class, right? Even I'm also thinking about saying 1 or 2 last classes so that I can explain your real-time project. But I'm planning for 1 week. The only hurdle what I have right now here it is your class only to stay at my home. I can take online, but in online I cannot explain real-time project. Do one thing. So I will tell you one fine day before Saturday. Okay, like Saturday is the date of May 11, I think. Yeah, Monday is 13, 12, Sunday, 11, Saturday, right? So Saturday morning, as much as possible, even online people also, whoever is available in Hyderabad, come to the offline. I will connect my laptop and I will explain you on Saturday, the half an hour, 1 hour session. And after that, if any pending classes are there, I may plan or online from my home. That is what I'm thinking. Sorry? Oh, 10th. So everyone leave, right? Yeah, everyone goes for the. We will see. Let's first. But anyway, tomorrow we have a class. First, let's at least we'll close one or two classes by before leaving. First time I'm taking Sunday class in Naresh IT only because of closing before election. We will see how it goes. Monday we have election in AP. Yeah, that is what I'm talking about, Bhaskar. Which Monday? 13th Monday only, right? I am also from AP only. Second time. What is second time? I taken any time. Only I think it's because of request from the Naresh IT. But personally, this time I am taking on Sunday. I requested this time Naresh IT. Tomorrow I will take a class. I will take at 8 to 10:30. Okay, is that right? Microservices introduction, complete theory part only. Don't worry. We will discuss the entire microservices. What is microservice? Why it came into the picture? What are the advantages over microservices versus monolithic? The entire introduction part we will complete tomorrow. Programming part maybe starts from the Monday again. So at least if you take in 2.5 hours class tomorrow, then 2 classes we may cover. I mean, the Sunday will cover almost 2 classes. So we have a class tomorrow at 8 a.m. Not 7:38. Let's come at 8 a.m. And I will leave you at 10 or 10:30, in between 10 to 10:30, based on the concept. Okay. So, but tomorrow onwards, microservices is going to start. It will take 10 to 12 classes. It will not a big deal. Once you understood the microservices architecture, the importance of components of the microservices architecture, microservices is not at all a big deal. That is also a small architecture. Don't worry too much about the microservices. When you know Spring and Spring Boot thoroughly, REST services, okay, consuming the REST services, accessing the REST services, profiles, property files, @value. That means if you are strong with the Spring Boot knowledge, 90%, you will write down business logic always, whatever we learned from last 3-4 months. But microservices is not at all a programming language. It's nowhere involving any technology. Microservices is all about an architecture. So when it comes to MVC, what it is? Architecture, controller, service layer. By following that, by MVC is a technology. Like MVC given any separate classes, any separate interfaces? No, right? By following that architecture, we built our application by using Spring Framework. By using Spring Framework. Similarly, microservices is also an architecture. To manage small services into a single application as a single application, to represent all small services as a single application, microservices is an architecture that will involve 3-4 new components. How to manage microservices point of view. Those 3-4 components we are going to learn as part of the microservices training. Okay, so that's why we will try to see what we can do before the election day. We will see. But tomorrow we have a class, okay, 8 to 10, 10:30. All theory part we will do. Oh, sorry, I will do one thing. Those logs are very important. I'll restart our application one more time. Okay, if you see here, building security filter chain with URI's information. So when you are loading your application, okay, automatically the security rules are configured or not when you load it itself. So making a decision which is a protected API, non-protected API, something like that. So this logic. Yeah, here. So this is the main object got created internally. Even if you return sysouts here also, creating bean object of the bcrypt password, creating authentication manager object like that. If you return sysouts, those messages also you can see here. That's why I'm telling you, write as much as possible loggers in your application to understand the security flow. It will show you the impact of understanding more and more. Okay, when you are not writing the loggers, you will not understand. Write as much as possible. Okay, fine. Now my application is started. Let me go and verify in the DB level. Okay, so here email ID, I'll take suresh@gmail.com and I'll make suresh12345 as a password. Contact number I'll keep Bangalore mail. Suresh is the first name. Fine. So good. First what we are doing now. Okay. So is it a protected or non-protected? Non-protected, right? So can I access this directly now? I'll do one thing. So what you got 403 forbidden. That means it's not allowing. The request was a legal request, but the server is refusing to respond it to, unlike a 401 unauthorized response. So that means some problem is there. We will try to understand what is the problem, where it came, why it is treating as a protected API. Token is missing unauthorized request. Okay, first we will see at least token one is working or not. Then we will see why it is making a problem. We will fix it. I will do one thing. This is also coming under the 403 forbidden. So that means that is taking permit all, any request should be authenticated. Am I making, do I need to add something like /Flipkart? Okay, somewhere we made a mistake. We'll try to understand. No, not this one. Yeah. Token is missing, validating tokens. Authorize request matches, Flipkart, no. Okay, now you got. This one not required. Context for generally. So here we have to fine tune the logic generally. But I don't think it will. User created for. Okay. So see here the passwords are how it is getting created. Okay, when we are inserting the data, registering the data, we are encoded the password. So this is how passwords will be encoded. So this is generally this is what we will follow in real-time applications. Also, we will not store the passwords directly as a plain text like Dilip 123 Suresh 123 something like that. We will never ever store. So this is how we will follow that. Okay, registration wise, good. Let me make sure login once token we are getting or not. So welcome to home. Please find the details. 200 okay you got and observe the headers part now. What is this? You got token as part of the headers or not? This is the token we got. Fine. Now, for example, if you given wrong, one, three, I given instead of 1, 2, 3. 403 forbidden. So based on this status code, we have to write down the exception handling, or maybe you will send same status code to the front end so that when they got 403 forbidden, then they will display login page or something like that. They will display. You will. That's what you can handle this exception. When bad credentials you will get. So internally, which exception it is showing? Bad credentials. Then you have to handle that exception. As part of that, you can write down one more response entity and inside that you can define a message as invalid credentials and status code as 401 unauthorized or 403. So here accessing is 403 forbidden, but you can return it as 401 unauthorized inside that exception handler method. Then that message will be displayed here as invalid credentials 401 unauthorized. Now front end team will display same thing in the red color format or whatever it is. They will display invalid credentials. Please try one more time, something like that. So if you are discussing kind of things like this, and if you are implementing the logic, it will take another 1 month also when you want to make sure a real-time project implementation, real-time security implementation. Generally, 4 or 5 people will work on the real-time applications minimum on this kind of examples also. We will work for 1 month, that to 4 to 5 people. Then think how much logic we will write on. Logic in the sense, it's not about always logic. How much better solution you are writing. That is what the things in the IT industry. Sometimes logic will complete within 4 to 5 lines, but it will take time to understand what is the problem, what is the analysis, what is the solution. It will take 5 to 6 days. But once you, after all analysis, you will find out only 4 or 5 lines of code is enough. So 4 or 5 lines code is taking 4 or 5 days of analysis. That is what analysis importance in every project. Okay. So we can n number of ideas. That is what I am telling you. Based on your skill set, based on your programmatic knowledge, programming knowledge, what you forgot, what you remembered from the previous concepts. So depends on that, your analysis and your solution will come out. So you can handle this, try this, and you can display a message like invalid credentials and everything. I'm not taking that scenario. But if you given again, correct user ID, again you are getting 200, okay? Please find all the details as well as you are getting a token also. You are getting again one more token. Now front end team knows that, guys, how to read this token automatically from the response body. That's front end, the developers knows that, how to do that. So I'm also getting same 403. So Swami, I will upload later. Just refer the project. Okay. So now let's see the other protected APIs where we have to pass the token. Okay, so we are passing email ID, then what you will get? User information. So can we take this REST service now? Yes. So what is the endpoint? Get mapping. Duplicate. What it is? 403 forbidden. So that means is it a expected response or not? Expected only. With respect to negative scenario, when token is missing, I understand the logs now. Now what you return the logs? What is this? Validating the token. Token is missing, something like that. So internally see that respective method is executing or not. Load by user ID, what we return with respect to security layer, every time that is executing or not. Okay, so let me attach the token now. How to attach? Headers. What is the header name we decided? Authorization. Let me take from here. Otherwise, again, spelling mistake problems. And the token, I will pass here. Now you got all the information or not? Now once you are passing valid token, you got all the information or not? Right? So for example, let's pass a invalid token. I don't know when it is created, 5 minutes happened or not, but we will try this. right? Value contains invalid. Okay, new line, something like that. Space is there. You got 403 forbidden. Why? The token created 5 minutes back. The token created 5 minutes back. Let me give this token one more time. The latest token, what we created again. Delete it, paste it, send it. Now you got the response. Again, after 5 minutes, the token will not be comes under invalid. Then again, you will get 403 forbidden, something like that. Okay. So this is how security layer will be involved, guys. So I'm telling you one more point also. Okay. So one application security implementation will never ever match with another application security layer. Every organization will have their own rules how to protect the resources based on their organization rules. Things will change, but overall context, most of the time same. Okay, like sending the token, validating the tokens, whether it is a walkthrough also, concept is same. If you are able to do at least these steps level, then that's more and more enough. I'm telling you. Okay, so don't worry too much about the security module, but at the same time, don't ignore also. Understand the flow. At least one or two examples. You have to see 403 forbidden, 200 okay, like this at least one or two times. Then remember the flow, what is happening with respect to security layer. See here, when you are writing the loggers, this is the knowledge you will get. So what's happening in the backend? Now 403 forbidden. So what happened? Validating the token, you got what? Token expired. At what time? 8:52. But you sent request at 8:53. Right? So that's why it is unable to read the token details. So you have to handle this exception. I already told you have to handle this exception. So how do we know that where it is coming, this exception? So in this line you are getting Spring Boot REST API dot JWT dot token manager dot get user ID of the token. So here you are getting an exception. In this class at line number 89 you are getting the exception. So that means here you have to handle with try catch blocks. Inside catch block, what exception you have to take? Expired JWT exception. Then you have to write down the loggers. Token is expired, we are getting an exception. And based on that, you are sending a response again back to the front end. It's a continuous process. When you are thinking, so many things will come out. So many ideas will come out. So try to do those things. So which type of project should I make for resume using Spring Boot? So see, as a fresher point of view, you can take any cloning application. You can tell them in a real interview, whenever I have a practice time, whenever I'm doing the practice, I taken a reference of so and so Flipkart website or Amazon website, how its functionality is working and all. Based on that, I created my own practice, my own application. Like one user is having multiple addresses. So in such case, I taken one-to-many relationship as part of my JPA mapping classes. Like that, you can explain to the interview. For example, assume I'm the panel. You are the fresher. You came and you are explaining like, I got this Spring Boot training. While I'm doing this Spring Boot training, I taken a reference of Flipkart website and I implemented something like, if you taken the Flipkart website, because even I am also know that Flipkart, because everyone knows about nowadays Flipkart. So that's why take a project which is known by panel also most of the times. Take a reference like that. Now you will explain, sir, if you take user ID, once you log in, we can see multiple addresses, but user ID is only one, but multiple addresses. So now I consider this as a one-to-many relationship. And I created two entity classes, user information, addresses information. I made user information as one-to-many in between user information versus address many. And I written so-and-so JSON mapping at the rate one-to-many mapping, cascade operations, all these things. And I implemented. Then definitely I will feel definitely you made your efforts when you are learning and when you are practicing. Because as an interview panel, I know whether you are saying, things without practicing or simply by hearting, I will realize that. I will know that whether you are saying practically or in a by-hearted manner you are saying. So take a reference of any existing applications, whatever you know. Concentrate things always only with respect to one application so that it will become very easy to explain in interviews also what you practice as a fresher when you are learning the training or after completing the training also. Okay, so take a reference of any existing project. For experienced person, then you have to explain about your real-time project. If you don't have real-time project, whatever we will keep in resume, see, experience is nothing but what? Getting fake experience, keeping fake experience. You are pretending as you went to the interview and you are pretending as you already did work as part of the real-time companies. So you will keep by the time one project in your resume. That project you have to explain. They don't keep Flipkart. Okay, if you are saying like I am working from so and so small consultancy and I implemented the Flipkart project. Okay, so that's what. So Flipkart project will be done by the Flipkart software team only, Flipkart IT team, IT company only. How to perform logout operation. So it's all simple. See, Sudhir, who is this? See, logout is all about when you are sending a request for the logout, you can see, that's what I'm telling you. A project will use internally these tokens, cookies, sessions, so many things will be used as part of login and logout process. Okay, different scenarios, different concepts people will use. So that's why whenever you are accessing any websites, nowadays you are going to get a pop-up. We are using cookies. Will you allow cookies or not? Otherwise, your application will impact like that. They are displaying a notification and they are showing a button. If you are clicking on allows cookies, then only that application will work. That means every real-time project, 99% uses cookies. And internally, they will use sessions concept also. So please know all these concepts. Sessions and cookies should be given in the advanced Java level, right? Utilize those things as part of Spring. Only one small class or small line will be there with respect to Servlet versus Spring. Okay, just use those things like that. Whatever you learned as part of the Servlets, try to implement everything again as part of the Spring framework point of view. So like that. What is mean by DAO? DAO means what? Data access object. So what is the meaning of data access object? Repository, that entity object. Okay, that entity object. Data access. That means database access. The object, generally DAO layer, database object layers. So DAO layer means repository layer. Few people will call it as repositories. Few people will call it as DAO layer, repository layer, persistence layer. Persistence also is nothing but a word related to database. Persistence layer, DAO layer, repository layer, all related to JPA. Different people, different terminology. Okay. So let's connect on tomorrow with microservices introduction. We have class at 8 and I will leave you in between 10 to 10:30. Okay. So it's all introduction. Don't ignore. Okay. Just another 12 classes. We'll complete the microservices. We will see what we can do. So is it okay? For example, I will arrange a class